Hey guys, this is Gary with salesdialers.com, and we have a really special guest today. We met Mark at the SMS Summit in St. Louis, and we were in the booth right beside him, and he was so helpful to the agents, and the agents were just flooding to his booth. And so we wanted to have him on the show and go over some of the things that he's learned to make agents successful. His name is Mark Covert. He's the Brokerage Sales Manager with Insurance Advisors Direct. So Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how you got started in the industry.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me on. I got started back around 2002. Believe it or not, I was a career fireman, but was looking for what all firemen do, that other part-time job to make ends meet. And had an opportunity to jump into sales in the insurance side, which is where I was kind of looking because it was flexible, it was commission-based, and I could kind of set my own hours. So the rest, they say, is history. Started with a scratch book of business, worked the systems that I was trained to do, and took that scratch book, and it became a multi-million-dollar book working part-time. So, you know, it's been a great ride. And now, as you indicated, I'm with Insurance Advisors Direct, which is a nationwide FMO. We're headquartered here in Novi, Michigan, but we do have a national touch in all the states, and a large product base to distribute to agents if they so desire. So yeah, I'm happy where I'm at, Gary, and life is good. And it was certainly a pleasure to meet you and Matt at the conference. We had some good conversation.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun at that conference, and you know, had tons of agents. You were talking about some special products that you guys had. We'll go over that a little later. But we wanted to pick your brain on some things. You know, this whole show is about helping that Medicare agent, and whether it's from scripts to objections, niche products, things like that. So this, you know, our show revolves around helping those agents, ones that might be struggling or getting started out in the industry. So, you know, our solution is a dialer CRM solution. It, you know, makes a lot of phone calls. You can track leads from cradle to grave. It's really an agent hub. So it has to do with a lot of calling. And talking to you earlier, that you started doing that, didn't you? You made a lot of phone calls and to those that senior market, and you have a lot of experience. Can you share some of that stuff? Maybe talk about some scripts that you use.
Sure. Yeah, Gary, typically my work week would start on a Monday. That was my call day to book appointments. The goal was to book 12 to 15 a week, and obviously close the vast majority of those throughout the end of the week, and try to stay to that. So on Mondays, I was in front of a telephone with either you know, DRMs, or I was looking at a galley lead list or a T65 list of some type, and it was just dial after dial after dial until you got live bodies. And then once we did get someone to pick up, the gist of the call was, hey, Mr. Pareto, this is Mark from so-and-so agency, and I'm going to be in your neighborhood next Tuesday, or this Tuesday, on some Medicare-related business that your neighbors have asked me to drop by their home, and I see that you have a 65th birthday coming up. Would you like me to stop by and advise you of your Medicare rights, options, and entitlements? In those three words, Gary, you know, people don't realize there are options, there are rights, and there are entitlements to Medicare, but they're power phrase words. And those are the words that catch people. And it's like, what are you talking about? I didn't know I had Medicare rights. I didn't know I had options. I didn't know I had entitlements. And, you know, then I would just keep going and say, listen, I'm going to be in the area on Tuesday during the day. So do mornings or afternoons work for you? And honestly, I used an offbeat time, like would 9:06 in the morning or 12:33 work better for you?
Now, tell me,
you know,
why did you do that?
I'm a busy guy.
Why did you do that?
It imparts on people that you're busy. And you've got a message to get out to a lot of your people. So wait a minute, why didn't he just say 12 o'clock or like 12:15? What's this 12:33 stuff?
That's great.
So yeah, it did, Gary. And typically within a 4-hour span or less, I would book 12 to 15 appointments every week. So the idea where this comes in with you folks, Gary, we did not have access at my brokerage at the time that I was working for to a dialing tool. And it really comes down to two words. It comes down to time, and it comes down to efficiency. So I could have been doing other things. Why I'm making these calls using your dialer, and as soon as I got a pickup. So the volume going out would have been much greater than me manually dialing, and I probably could have booked even more. But within the time frame that I had to do those calls and make those things happen, that was purely I'd hit the limits.
All right, so I have to back up, Mark, because I want to make sure everybody who watches this show goes back and understands those words you use, because I've never heard, we've done tons of these interviews, and I've never heard people use those words, and I love those words that you used. So I'm sorry to ask you to repeat this, but can you talk a little slower on that script you just used on those power words? Can you go over that really quick again?
Sure. The three words that we're using here, Gary, are rights, options, and then the word entitlements. And it's just simply you're basing your call on the fact that you're in the area at the request of some of your neighbors, which, you know, on the phone legitimizes your presence. And that, you know, you would have an opportunity being that you're on Medicare. And sometimes we would ask, are you currently on Medicare Parts A and B? Oh, you are. Well, listen, while I'm in the area, would you like me to stop by and advise you on your rights, options, and entitlements? And then give them the off times. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, geez, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, go ahead. So, and certainly you get, yeah, certainly you get some no's, Gary, but more times than not, those words really invoke a different thought process. That's the whole idea, is to get these people out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, now I love the fact that in that script, and this might be one of the top 3 scripts we've ever seen, and I just love everything I love about this script. One of the things is you just mentioned was those neighbors. I'm going to be in your area on the request of your neighbors. So that builds validity towards you being a professional. Your other neighbors are, their neighbors are, you're coming by to see their neighbors, and they might feel like they're kind of left out too, right? That's just powerful.
That's correct. There, you know, the keep up with the Joneses mentality sometimes employs itself on these phone calls.
Yeah.
So the idea that, hey, how come I didn't get the message on this? There, you know, no memo on that. How come my neighbors are getting advised of their rights, options, and entitlements, and I'm sitting here while you drive by and I get nothing?
Right, right. When you mentioned that, I was like, that is so awesome. I mean, that's some great info right there. And I can tell you this, we're going to have people, and I know we've been doing this a while, we're going to have people that mention this script here today about you know, using the words rights, options, and entitlements, and also that script about your neighbors. So, and I love the times as far as, you know, making it not you know, 12 o'clock or 12:30, and using the time like, you know, 12:03 or 12:08. Man, it really adds that that shows that you're important, and you're on a tight schedule, and you're coming because you're on a tight schedule. Your times are you know, very selective. It really is just a great idea. That is an awesome, awesome, awesome script. Is there anything else that you used on the phone to try and maybe get that appointment? Any other techniques or things like that, Mark?
Well, no, I just think when people object to the call, Gary, I think you just have to keep talking and talk yourself right through the objection. You know, objections are simply excuses. And, you know, it's just the idea that, you know, certainly you're going to get the hangups. You're going to get the guy that, no, I'm already taken care of. My brother-in-law is an insurance guy. He's got me taken care of. That's okay. They just saved you a whole bunch of time and wasted energy that told you this is a wasted phone call for me. I need to move on. So, you know, simply talking through the objections and not trying to skirt yourself around. Yes, Mr. Pareto, I certainly understand you currently have a Medicare supplement, but did your agent advise you of the basic or the comprehensive plan? And what do you mean basic and comprehensive? Well, a basic plan is Medicare, but did he give you the drug plan, which makes it comprehensive? I don't know anything about that. Well, maybe I should stop by. Would you like 1208 or would you like 133? So, yeah.
So you just said maybe I should stop by. Which is great in itself. Maybe I should stop by, and so that was really good as well. Maybe I should stop by just to inform you of what, you know, your rights, options, and entitlements are. That's really good stuff.
Correct. Yeah. And a lot of times it'll invoke some more conversation, Gary, and that's great because that just solidifies. Now you have begun somebody. I probably want to invite this guy through my door, and we probably should have a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked a little bit about objections, but I want to go back just to something else. So, any other rapport builder things that you use to build rapport on the phone, or anything that you use? You have to build rapport. You have to get on common ground. I'm a big believer in making people laugh. If you can tell them a joke, obviously a very clean joke, but a professional joke, but if you can make people laugh, and that builds rapport. Any other tips that you've seen or used, like something like that, Mark?
Well, I kept the phone calls basic, Gary. There was never a sales pitch. There was never anything there. The idea here is to market your way in and sell yourself out.
Right.
And and to take that one step further, I truly believe that my sales were made on the warm up, which is after I got through that door. I was not in a rush to get to that kitchen table. Let's have a conversation in the foyer. You get comfortable with me. I want you to know who I am. I might look around the room and see pictures. I'm eyeballing the room, Gary. I want to see if there's a spouse, if there's grandchildren, daughters, sons in this picture. Oh, and maybe remark on that and get some conversation there. If you take that first 5 minutes to warm these folks up and let them gain some trust and some confidence in you, then we walk to the table and then we talk about your problem and let's try and find a solution for that problem.
Cool. Really good stuff. So let's talk more about objections. What's the number one objection that you see in the market, Mark?
Well, typically, Gary, it's like, no, I'm not interested. I've already got one of these, or no, 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 I don't need to talk about it. I can do this on my own. And you just simply talk yourself through those, Gary. It's like, well, I know your neighbors thought that too, Mrs. Jones. But they've asked me to stop by because they weren't aware that there was rights, options, and entitlements. And you just keep repeating yourself and talking through that. And you'd be amazed at how many times, because typically it's 6 to 10 no's, Gary, before you get a yes. And you get those no's, and I said, well, maybe you better stop by. You make this sound important. Maybe I really do need to listen to somebody and get a second opinion on this other than what I'm seeing, because as Medicare agents know, Gary, we get bombarded with these calls and from people, and they're telling me, I got all this material that's been hitting my door for 6 months. What do I do with it? And it's very easy for me to say, just put it on the table, and when I get there, we'll either get it in the recycle bin or you can just throw it away, because I have all of those products available to you. But we need to talk about them and explain just exactly how these things function and work, and what solution best fits your needs. So that needs analysis. Now I'm going to do a needs analysis in that house. I've actually engaged myself with you and said, I'm going to spend time with you, Mr. Prado, and we're going to figure out what's going on in your life and how I best fix that problem.
That's great. Got to do a needs analysis, right? So do you have tools for a needs analysis? How do you do that, Mark?
We do it at Insurance Advisors Direct. We've actually developed a format and a forum where an agent can actually sit there and walk down through everything at that initial sale. And it's not so much, Gary, to push product and sales at the table. One sale is enough. This is an overwhelming event in their life. You don't want to do that. You close this sale, you calm them down, you cool down to the thing, you don't pick the check up right away. You just talk and try and get them back to a neutral level. It's a very emotional time in their life. But in the needs analysis form, we identify things like, do you feel comfortable with your house payment? Is the house paid off? Life insurance, final expense needs. How are your investments doing? Are you happy with that? Things like that. And all the while, you're looking at the sheet, Gary, that may lead you to life insurance sales. It may lead you to annuity sales. It could lead you to ancillary product sales. So the idea is you can take that, and we advise agents to take this to their local print shop and get a carbonless copy made. And you leave that carbonless copy with your client, and all of a sudden now you have skin in the game. They know who you are because your name is on that sheet. And this guy actually took the time, or gal, to sit with me and identify some things that could be a problem, and we certainly could talk about them. And you leave it at that, Gary, and you say, listen, let's get you through this. Let's get your cards. Let's get everything coming. Make sure everything is in shape here before we move on. But how about, Mr. Prado, why I'm here? Let's take a look maybe 3 months down the road. Number one, for me to check on your Medicare card that we just got you ordered. And number two, let's come back and revisit some of these things after you've had an opportunity to think it through and decide if this is an opportunity for you to maybe solve some of these other issues.
That's great info. Once again, I'm going to back up here because that first part we started talking about competition, and you said that some of these agents, which is true, you know this as well as I do, some of these agents are, like you said, are mailing a year out of their birthdays. They're calling 12 months out from the birthdays on the T65s. So what can you do to make yourself stand out from the competition, Mark?
Well, I think what you got to get in early and you got to get in often, Gary, and you have to let these people know that you are the Medicare authority, you know, that you understand Medicare. And again, when you revisit, it sounds so simple, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but when you use those power phrase words, you're probably saying something that 99.9% of another agent is not saying in those calls, and it makes you stand out to that particular person on the other end. Well, the other 5 people that have called me never said I had rights, options, or entitlements.
Right.
So it's simply, Gary, you've got to get yourself out there, and you know it never hurts, obviously, if someone says, well, hey, I know Don Smith or somebody in the neighborhood. Well, I know Don as well. He happens to be a client, right? So, you know, the name dropping certainly does have its value there if you're ever presented with that opportunity. But it's just the idea that you've got to find some phraseology when you're marketing yourself. And we always tell our agents, you got to market yourself in, and you'll sell your way out of there. So you've got to find a way to make you look different than the 100 other agents that are calling that same T65 list from all these other carriers and companies.
Right, that makes sense. That's great info. So I wanted to talk a little bit about niche products. You know, everybody's going after the Medicare, the T65s. What are some niche products in the market you have seen that agents can use to capitalize and make more money for themselves? Those niche products. Let's go down there for a little bit.
Sure, Gary. Well, I think the one that really stands out in my mind that we represent here is a product known as a DSNP, or a Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. And for the folks out there that view your program that are working in the Medicare Advantage arena, what that does, if they're not familiar with it, that is a 12-month market that's not restricted by the AEP type rules, and we're coming back to what's known as OEP now for this instead of the special Medicare disenrollment period that we've been working with for the last few years. So the idea of that is we have some carriers here in our state, and also as well as other states. We just simply identify where you're working and then work to find those carriers that have these products. But for agents that want to work in the dual market, and that is the people who are on Medicare and Medicaid, it offers them a 12-month opportunity. So if they have 2 markets they're working, the standard market with Medicare Advantage during the AEP, that's fantastic, but they can transition off that and never let their foot off the gas, and they can make a ton of money doing it because these products pay full CMS commission. So it offers you the avenue to continue your sales. We know there's people that just like AEP and then I'm done, and we have other folks, you know, that deal with us 12 months out of the year because they love those paychecks, and we certainly encourage that. So it is a niche product, Gary, and but you know, there's opportunity out there, and we have some carriers that will actually help you do things such as they provide community outreach reps to get you into food pantries and into soup kitchens and places like that, and low income centers, and talk to these folks and work appointments. We have medical care centers that we are partnered up with that bring our agents in to sell these types of products. So there's a number of avenues out there, and certainly agents can give us a ring, Gary, at the office, and we can certainly take a look at that and show them what's out there.
Cool, great. So that's a great niche product, and agents can capitalize on that. What other products are your cross-sell products? What other products do you find that most agents use that are good? Obviously, this is, well, that's not a cross-sell product. That's just going in for that niche product. But what's a good product to cross-sell once you get your foot in the door, once you've got that Medicare sale? What other products do you think are a good fit that match for that senior?
Well, I think, Gary, what we see a lot of at the table is through the needs analysis and whatnot. Final expense insurance certainly comes to mind. People don't realize that Social Security only pays $255. Maybe people haven't set aside or have gone to take second mortgages because of circumstances in their life, and they certainly don't want to leave a legacy of debt to their children or whatever it is they choose to leave their estate to. I think the other top one that we have, Gary, that agents identify with us are hospital indemnity products when we're working in the Medicare Advantage arena to offset some of the out-of-pocket expense that comes along with the low premium that those typically provide. And we have a niche product here from Guaranteed Trust Life that's a guaranteed issue product from 64.5 to 65.5. So we have agents offer that up, and we actually created a cross-selling sheet for them to offer up a solution, not products, but 3 solutions. So we have basically a good, better, and a best on that sheet, Gary, and it identifies it. I'll give you your Medicare Advantage plan, or I'll give you your Medicare Advantage plan and final expense, or I'm going to give you a Medicare Advantage plan, final expense, and I'm going to give you some dental or some vision or whatever else, as long as it's allowable under the scope of the AEP guidelines. We format them to that angle, and we see people turning that sheet, which one works best for you, Mr. Prado, and then they can initial that, they can date it, and it offers you a layer of protection. So if somebody comes after you and says, you never offered this, or you did, why did you do that? I didn't, your mom and dad picked this. So agents can just simply put it in a client file, keep it there, and then if there's ever any issues, you know, it's certainly not a legal document, but at least it's documentation that you've done your diligence.
Right. So let's talk about final expense really quickly. The lead into final expense, how would you go about doing that?
Well, when you talk about Medicare, and typically Social Security always gets wrapped into these discussions, Gary, and you can certainly lead into that by, are you aware of what happens when you pass, you know, and you can explain the fact that Social Security is only going to give you $255 for funeral expenses. So if that's a concern, Mr. Prado, we certainly can revisit that. And a lot of times people go, well, can we do that now? It is a concern of mine. And, you know, of course, obviously you want to get them directed back to your Medicare sale, but you're making a note on your notepad right there. As soon as I'm done locking this app up, right, we're going to talk final expense, and you should have those things available to you in your toolkits. I never went in a house without what I call the Medicare spoke products, like final expense or life insurance, hospital indemnity, dental, vision, and hearing products. It's a big thing, Gary, because as people are leaving retirement or leading into retirement from employers are terminating those benefits, and they're going into retirement with none of that available. So it offers you an opportunity to upsell your clients, or at least revisit them, you know, down the road and have that conversation again, and maybe offer you some further commission opportunities. Right.
Let's talk about the same avenue, the hospital indemnity plans. What's your lead in for that, Mark?
Well, especially in the market plans, we used to ask people, we would say, Mr. Prado, do out-of-pocket costs concern you? And, you know, typically, well, yeah, I don't like to give up my check. Okay. So now you have your sales materials out, Gary, and particularly with MAPDs, right at the top of the thing, there is a term we call MOOP, M-O-O-P, maximum out of pocket. And I would focus their attention on that number. And I go, well, if you had a really bad year, Mr. Prado, and you had to write a check for that number, would that concern you? And the obvious answer is yes, it does. And then you can take them down to some other line item things, such as the hospital per day stays at $250, $300, whatever product in your state may be at that. Well, that's 6 days, Mr. Prado, at $250 a day. That's a $1,500 check. Would you feel comfortable writing that? Well, no. Well, I do have something here that we can offset that out-of-pocket exposure if you'd like to take a peek at that. And typically, most people do. Yeah, for about $25 to $30 a month, I can give you that. I can give you that $6,700 in a different format. So most people like to hear that. When it's a little to get a lot, that's an attractive formula.
That's great stuff right there. Thanks, Mark. So, you know, I have just a couple more questions. We try to keep these at 30 minutes. And, you know, just talk briefly, you know, back when you called, you said that you had to pick up the phone and dial. You know, it really is a numbers game. And that's what Sales Dialers does, is it allows you to go through the numbers. Mark, you know that seniors aren't going to be home certainly at 9 a.m. or 1 p.m. or or 4 p.m. They're home at different times, and so they're visiting grandchildren and things like that. They're going to do some stuff, and so that's what our solution does. Is it allows you to call at a more frequent time throughout the day. A lot of agents, Mark, as you well know, they call at 9, they call and maybe another time can't get a hold of them, and they give up, right?
That's correct, Gary. And I think we go back to those two words I used earlier. It comes down to time and it comes down to efficiency. What is my time worth as an agent, and how efficient can I be to meet my sales goals for the week and get those 12 to 15 appointments and get out there and book these and grab the sales. So when I can sit there, Gary, with a headset on and dial and get a pickup, and I can do other things. Maybe I'm looking at some applications I took, scrubbing them while I'm doing these dials, waiting for someone to pick up. That's not me physically pushing those keypads on that phone. Right. I can't do two things at once in terms of manual, where that dialer is taking all that off of me, and all I got to do is talk when Joe on the other end picks up and give my spiel.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. I mean, the technology now compared to 10 years ago, there's tools out there that an agent can be more successful and cover more ground and have more sales. So it's a great time to get in the market. So Mark, this is how I end every show, and I always say this to everybody, and it's the one thing that it's the biggest takeaway for the show that we do. Here's the question. What is the one thing that an agent can do right now to either get more business, to be more successful? If there is one thing, what is it? Maybe a couple of people have said I need 2 or 3, but what is a one thing that they can do now to get more business and be successful, whether they're a struggling agent or they're just starting out in the industry? What is the one thing they need to do? Can you answer that?
Well, Gary, I think the one thing you need to do is you need to take advantage of the technology, because again, this is about your time and it's about being efficient. I have a phrase that we tell agents: activity equals aptivity. So the more active you are, the more calls you're getting out there, the more appointments you're booking, you're going to be successful. You are going to be successful if you put the time in, and your system, Gary, allows these people to do that, because they can be doing 2 things at once, literally, while they're sitting in their office and being as efficient as you're going to get within that environment. If I'm doing something manually, Gary, I'm not being efficient, because I can only do one thing manually by myself. So that's where sales dialers is a key component here. Take advantage of the technology and optimize your time to book those appointments.
Yeah, for sure. So that's your one thing? That's your one thing that the agent should do. That's it?
Absolutely. Like cool. I said, Gary, your activity is going to result in aptivity. It's a numbers game, just as you indicated.
I love that saying. I love that. I'm going to borrow that from now on, if that's okay. Do you mind?
That's okay, Gary, and I won't even charge you for it.
Well, the one thing that, I always tell agents when I spoke at the SMS conference is, another little tip is that I feel that you should book time as an appointment, book your prospecting time as an appointment in your calendar. So you're going to see Jeff Smith at 2 o'clock. You have, just like on your calendar, you're prospecting from 9 to 10. You book that time at whatever your prospecting time is, add it to your calendar, and nothing else gets in the way. It's an appointment. You go on that appointment, you make phone calls, you do prospecting, and that helps keep you accountable. What do you think of that idea?
No, that's absolutely true, Gary, because my work week would start on a Monday, and Monday was call day, period. End of discussion. Nothing else is there's no sales calls. There was nothing. I was on the telephone, had all my leads organized, whatever I was going to call. And I think along with that, Gary, is you market an area. Make your time efficient when you're in an area. Market streets, market zip codes, lay it on a map and go, this is where I'm going to pound today. Because if I only got to drive within a 5-mile radius, I can turn and burn a whole lot quicker than if I'm over here at your house and then I've got to drive 30 minutes to get over here. Now, obviously, some days that happens and you just have to deal with it. But my call strategy was always trying to book in an area where I had very minimal drive times, drive to and then drive around and then drive home.
Yeah, and that's a great point as well. You want to book in those geographic areas, which optimizes your time. You got to be efficient in everything you do, isn't that right?
Correct, Gary, and I think that's where your system allows that, because you can dial in the detail on these areas with these zip codes and not just randomly dial through a list that might take you into 4 different zip areas that are 30, 40 minutes apart. Right. In some cases geographically located. So yeah, I don't mind working hard, Gary, but I love working smart.
This is awesome. Mark, we've got to have you on again, because I think this is the best script that we've ever seen from a Medicare manager, or any of the Medicare people that we've gone through. I love your script. I love your tips. So we'd love to have you back on the show at another date, if that's okay.
Sure, Gary, I'd love to be back, and certainly it's been a pleasure to meet you and your team at the conference, and obviously you and I will be having a lot of further discussions, and but I appreciate you having me on the show today, and I hope I brought some value to your customers, and they're certainly willing to get in contact with me, Gary, after the show, and we'll provide them that information here shortly, I'm sure.
Yep. So Mark, go ahead and tell people how they can contact you, your email address, website, cell phone, whatever you want to do. Please provide that information for these guys right now, please.
Sure, Gary. Well, they can get me toll free, 8 to 5. We're in the Eastern time zone. And that number is 800-381-0977. And again, I'll repeat it back here, 800-381-0977, and my direct extension when the phone operator picks up is going to be 109. Okay. 109. And my email, Gary, is my first initial in my first name and my last name, M. Covert, @ and then it's IAD as in dog, and then the word insures, INSURES.com. So mcovert @ IADinsures.com. You can shoot me an email, say, Mark, could you reach out to me? I'd like to have some more discussions. We are a nationwide FMO, Gary. We have a number of carriers. We're working in 15 different product spaces. So we are very diverse, and the staff here has an excess of 100 years of Medicare experience. So we're very versed in the senior market, and we certainly think we can be some value to an agent if they'd like to come on board with us.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being on the show today, and we really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gary.